Okay, my name is Brooke, and today I'm going to be teaching the importance of hand hygiene, the proper way to wash your hands, and the importance of compliance of hand hygiene. And my audience is my fellow students, nursing students of MCC. First, I'm going to start out by handing out some guidelines on hand washing.
Thank you, Brooke.
Okay, some of the guidelines are if you have visibly soiled or dirty hands, example, blood, or if you come in contact with blood or bodily fluids, you need to use soap and water. If your hands are not visibly soiled, you can use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. And it's very important to wash your hands before you have any direct contact with patients, before you go into their room, after leaving their room, before you put on gloves, after taking off your gloves, and for example, especially before you do any Foley catheterization, and I'm going to show the proper way to demonstrate hand hygiene. And it's also important to not have your fingernails longer than 1/4 of an inch. Like if you hold your hand up, you don't want your fingernails to be visibly seen over your tips of your fingers. And it's important to not have artificial nails, because those are just, it's like what's the word I'm looking for?
Reservoir.
Yeah, it's a reservoir for infection. And okay, I'm going to show y'all the proper technique. First, you cut on the water. You want the water to not be too hot, but you want it to be lukewarm. So I'm going to cut on the hot and the cold. First, you wet your hands, and you apply a generous amount of soap. You rub your hands together vigorously for 15 seconds. You rub the tops of your hands and your wrist, your fingertips, and you rub in between your fingers. And then when you're ready to rinse, you rinse your hands in a downward position till the soap is all off. You never shake. You let them drip dry, and then you grab one paper towel at a time and you do a downward swipe. Throw it away. Grab another, do another downward swipe. And then you cut the water off using the paper towel. Okay? Do y'all have any questions?
Why do you have to use the paper towel
Because
to turn the water off?
if you didn't use the paper towel to cut the water off, you're basically recontaminating your hands, because you're touching the dirty surfaces of the handles that have the germs. So it's important to make sure you cut it off using the paper towel. And when you use the hand sanitizer, you do a generous amount, and you rub your hand. You make sure your hands are fully covered with the sanitizer, and you rub until it's dry. It's very important to make sure you rub your hands together until it dries. So you could be standing here for 5 seconds to 15 seconds, just ever how long it takes for the product to dry.
What if you're in a hurry? Can you use paper towel to dry them off real quick?
No, you need to make sure that the product dries on its own from you vigorously rubbing it.
And when you're washing your hands with the soap and water, how long did you say the time? I missed it.
You rub your hands together with the soap vigorously for 15 seconds.
Okay.
And then you rinse downward, and then you use your paper towels. But the main thing to remember is when you're washing your hands, rub them together, and also do your fingertips, because your fingernails harbor bacteria. And make sure you get up here, and then rinse downward, because you don't want to, when you're rinsing downward, you don't want to be holding your hands up because the germs will be running back. You rinse in a downward motion so it all runs into the sink. Okay?
Does it matter what type of like sanitizer you use, or?
Yes, it needs to be a sanitizer that is alcohol-based and antiseptic. And usually before you go into patient's room, they have it on the door, and that's very important to do it right before you go in and when you're coming out. Okay, I would like y'all to do return demonstration, and you can go first.
Am I allowed to leave my rings on?
No, you need to make sure if you have on rings, you need to take off your rings.
Watch.
And if you have a watch, just make sure it's out of the way, but I would just take it off.
So you said first to turn on my water?
Yes. Make sure it's a lukewarm temperature.
You said to rinse my water first?
Wet your hands first. Seconds.
Getting good, Summer.
Hot so you can, and then you train the finger. Good. Downward swipe all the way. And cut the water off just to push it forward. Okay, good job. Ken, would you like to demonstrate?
Certainly. You said lukewarm?
Yeah. And pull your sleeves. Put your hands first. Okay.
Am I coming from my eye?
Yes.
That's pretty good. Doing all right? Not long enough?
That's good. Okay. You didn't rinse one hand at a time, so I'm going to need you to start over.
Are you kidding me?
Just make sure when you're rinsing your hands, you rinse one at a time, not together.
Okay.
That's good. That's good. Now the paper towels, and you use one at a time, and downward swipe. Out of the way. Okay. Okay, good job.
Thank you.
Okay, and according to my article, in a hospital setting where people come to receive treatment in their illness get well, but many patients develop infections and that they did not have prior to admission. That's called a hospital-acquired infection. And more than 200,000 acquire a healthcare-associated infection each year. As a result, 8,000 among them die. In the U.S., the costs associated with the 5 most frequent healthcare-associated infections were estimated to be as high as $9.8 billion yearly. Although hand hygiene is considered to be the most effective strategy in reducing these rates of hospital-acquired infections, compliance rates remain inadequate. That's why it's very important for not only you'll know how to do the proper technique, but of how to, like, when to do it and be compliant with it. It's important to do it, like I said, before you go in your patient's room, before any direct contact with your patient, when you leave your patient's room, like if you're in the room and if you touch their bodily fluid, even if you have on gloves, it's important right when you leave the room to take off the gloves and wash your hands with soap and water. Okay, any questions? Okay. Well, that's the end of my demonstration.